Registered owner?
No.
You're not the registered owner?
No.
Okay. You have your ID on you?
You know what I'm saying? You said you were bleeding all over the black seat. That's why. But I was seeing.
Miss Grimsley in reference to case 2024-042614. This is to advise you that on the 5th.
A routine traffic stop quickly escalates into a volatile and dangerous confrontation. It unfolds on a nondescript street, a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of law enforcement interactions. At first, everything seems normal, a brief exchange between an officer and a driver. The officer, calm and professional, initiates contact with the driver of a black Benz SUV, explaining that a tag check has revealed an outstanding warrant. This seemingly straightforward notification sets the stage for what soon becomes a high-stakes encounter. The driver, Shelby Grimsley, initially responds with a simple inquiry, but the tension in the air is already beginning to build. What starts as routine quickly shifts toward conflict as the officer reiterates the reason for the stop, emphasizing the warrant. This moment is the turning point, marking the sharp transition from compliance to confrontation. Shelby's expression changes. Her grip tightens on the wheel, and her voice grows sharper. The officer, sensing the shift, remains firm but composed, watching for any sudden movement. The atmosphere grows heavier with each passing second, as if both individuals realize they are now teetering on the edge of something far more dangerous than a routine stop. Then, in an instant, the situation erupts, setting off a chain reaction that neither could have fully anticipated. The initial stop and escalation. Grimsley's reaction was immediate and visceral. She displayed confusion, disbelief, and escalating fear. As the officer attempted to clarify the situation, the conversation became increasingly fragmented, with Grimsley growing more panicked. She denied ownership of the vehicle, adding to the confusion. The request for identification became a point of contention, her fear intensifying with each passing second. Despite the officer's attempts to maintain control, the situation spiraled. Grimsley's fear escalated into desperation, her emotional distress overtaking any sense of rational thought. As the tension mounted, the moment reached a breaking point. The officer attempted to direct her, but her actions became unpredictable and erratic. Words were lost in the chaos as she tried to explain herself, but panic had already taken hold. The situation deteriorated further when Grimsley allegedly put the SUV in reverse, striking the officer. Though the exact sounds of the altercation were unclear, the impact of the event was undeniable. The officer, now injured, reported being struck, describing the pain and disorientation caused by the sudden escalation. What started as a conversation had now turned into an incident requiring immediate medical attention and legal intervention. The chaos of the moment was heightened by the conflicting emotions displayed by Grimsley. Her fear drove her decisions, and in her mind, she may have felt cornered, leading to a desperate attempt to escape. This, however, only worsened her situation. Officers are trained to remain calm in high-pressure situations, but when an individual reacts unpredictably, their responses must adapt quickly. The shift from a simple inquiry to an act of aggression was a dramatic and dangerous turn that no officer wants to experience during what should be a routine interaction. The impact on the officer was significant, not just physically, but also in terms of the sudden realization that the situation had escalated beyond control. His immediate distress was clear, and his words conveyed the shock of what had just occurred. Even with years of training, law enforcement officers are not immune to the unpredictability of human behavior. In this case, a simple warrant check had transformed into an act of violence. The officer's report detailed the exact sequence of events, providing insight into the moment his safety was compromised. His words painted a vivid picture of the physical toll the confrontation took, noting his injuries and disorientation after the SUV struck him. Law enforcement response and arrest. Following the assault, responding officers arrived, shifting the focus to securing the scene and apprehending Grimsley. The injured officer recounted the sequence of events, still bearing the strain of the ordeal. His description of the attack underscored the sudden and violent nature of the confrontation. With multiple officers now on site, the arrest process began. The priority shifted to securing evidence and ensuring that all necessary documentation was completed for what would soon become a court case. During the arrest, Grimsley raised concerns about the handcuffs, prompting officers to demonstrate professionalism and transparency in addressing her complaints. Officers are trained to document every aspect of an arrest, particularly when a suspect claims mistreatment. In this case, they ensured that the handcuffs were properly adjusted and that there was no excessive force being used. Their response highlighted the importance of protocol, even in situations where emotions were running high. The focus then turned to Grimsley's claims of injury, though officers noted a discrepancy between her statements and the physical evidence. Her claims of internal injuries could not be immediately verified, adding another layer of complexity to the case. Situations like these often require medical evaluations, as officers must distinguish between genuine medical concerns and attempts to avoid incarceration. Every claim had to be noted, as the details of her arrest would be examined in legal proceedings. The legal ramifications. The procedural aspects of the arrest took center stage as officers completed the necessary paperwork and formalities. The reading of the notice of seizure reinforced the gravity of the situation, signifying the shift from a physical confrontation to the legal process that would follow. Grimsley inquired about her charges, receiving factual and direct responses that she would soon hear again in a courtroom. The charges, which included aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, highlighted the severity of her actions and the legal consequences she faced. As the case progressed, additional details about Grimsley's history surfaced. Her prior arrests and legal entanglements provided context for her situation and added depth to the unfolding narrative. With a history of charges spanning multiple years, including offenses related to prostitution, criminal mischief, domestic violence, drug possession, DUI, and petty theft, the prosecution would use this background to build their case. Her legal battles were far from over, and this incident now became another chapter in an already complicated legal history. This case illustrates the long-term consequences of impulsive decisions in high-stakes situations. Every action taken that night carried weight, from the moment Grimsley refused to comply to the instant she put the vehicle in reverse. Law enforcement encounters can be unpredictable, but this case was particularly striking because of the rapid descent from a simple warrant notification to a physical altercation with serious legal consequences. Conclusion. Now, the case moves forward, and the long-term legal implications begin to take shape. The procedural steps of the arrest are finalized, Grimsley's husband is notified, and paperwork is completed. What started as a chaotic and violent confrontation has now settled into the methodical routine of law enforcement. The scene shifts from high tension to the structured processes that follow every arrest. As the legal proceedings unfold, this case serves as a stark reminder of how quickly a routine stop can escalate, and how every interaction between law enforcement and the public carries lasting consequences. For Grimsley, the road ahead is uncertain. The legal system will determine the severity of her punishment, but her actions that night will not be forgotten. Her past offenses will likely play a role in the court's decision, and the prosecution will argue that her history of legal troubles suggests a pattern of reckless behavior. On the other hand, her defense will attempt to frame her actions within the context of fear and panic, perhaps arguing that she was overwhelmed and made a poor decision in the heat of the moment. Regardless of the arguments made in court, this case highlights the thin line between routine and crisis. One moment, an officer is conducting a standard warrant check, and the next, he is recovering from injuries sustained in an unexpected attack. Law enforcement officers train for these moments, but no amount of preparation can eliminate the unpredictability of human responses. Consequences of that night will play out in court, shaping the futures of both the officer and Grimsley. Every decision made in a moment of fear or frustration can have lasting repercussions, and this case serves as a powerful reminder of that reality.